Hey guys, I'm Rob Bass, and this is Not Mitten Box. Today I wanted to put down the razor and give a brief history of the very origins of the Transformers toy line. But I promise I'll be ripping toys pretty soon. But for now, let's learn about the Generation 1's Transformers. You ever notice that they have these copyrights on the bottom that don't always have the Hasbro logo? One of our friends on the forums, Creeboy, asked about this, and the Takara logos on the back of some of the original toys. Let me make a short answer a little longer. The Transformers, or what we came to know as the Transformers, started as two separate toy lines in Japan from a company called Takara. This line started in the mid-70s. Micromen and the Diaclone. Over the years, from 1974 to about 1984, Takara reused many of the same toys over and over again for various versions of the same idea. No matter what it's called, it pretty much stems from the same idea: Micromen and Diaclone. Now on a side note, there are a few Generation 1s that are not made by Takara, like Jetfire, Whirlwind, and stuff like that. But for now, I just want to talk about the first two waves of the Transformer toys that came out in America. Those were strictly Takara molds. Well, let's start with Micromen. These pocket-sized heroes started life as a tiny little robots men, and they were based on G.I. Joe. In 1972, Takara released a series of 8-inch and 12-inch action figures called Henshin Cyborg, Transforming Cyborg. The Henshin Cyborg line was a spin-off of their earlier Combat Joe line. The Combat Joe line were created from the molds of the 8-inch and 12-inch G.I. Joe action figures that Takara licensed from Hasbro. The body of the Henshin Cyborgs were molded in clear plastic to expose the gleaming inner cybernetic implants and the atomic engine. Since both the cost of producing a large-scale figure and vehicles and playsets for 12-inch dolls were counterproductive, in 1974 Takara decided to produce miniature versions of the Henshin Cyborg line, which was called Micromen. Unlike other toy lines at the time, Micromen figures were marketed as being the actual size of the cyborg beings they were meant to be replicas of. The cyborg beings were said to hail from the fictional planet Micro-Earth, and to disguise themselves as ordinary objects and household toys. All of the Micromen toys used these 5mm connectors and ports, which allowed parts from one toy to be used on another to form a new toy. When the Micromen toys were imported to the US, different companies acquired the license and took the toy lines in different directions. The most famous, the Mego Corporation in the US, acquired the license for the 3 and 75-inch action figures and vehicles and released them as Micronauts. The big change came in 1980 when Micromen became Micro Change, which added a slew of new robots to the game. The line stands out for having ordinary objects that turn into robots. Guys like Megatron and Soundwave, along with Perceptor, running out the large-scale toys with Bumblebee, Gears, and the likes handling the mini-bots. This is where most of Generation 1's first wave of toys came from. There were several guns and a few cassette tapes and of course Cassette Man himself. A lot of the Micromen toys were rehashed in other toy lines. One in particular was Computer Warriors. I know I'm overlooking a lot of history here, but I did say this was a brief history. But I wanted to get into the Diaclones, which came out in 1980. Diaclone are what most of the other large-scale planes, trucks, robots came from. Guys like Wheeljack, Sunstreaker, the Triple Change Blitzwing, and the man himself, Convoy. We all know him as Optimus Prime. Other little side note, Diaclone robots come with tiny little drivers who ride inside the toys. If you ever get a Generation Dinobot, there's always a little compartment for a driver. So if you ever flip over a Generation 1 Transformer and see a copyright from Takara Toys, this is the reason. The molds that are used are Takara's. Also, a good way is if the toy has a rub sign, it's not from the Diaclone or Micromen line. Takara toy robots were a big hit overseas. Along with China, places like Korea, Italy, and most of Europe received Diaclone and Micromen bots before any American ever saw one. If you're on the hunt for these toys, be careful. Korea and China made so many bootlegs of these two toy lines that what you think is a bona fide Takara may be a cheap knockoff. Always look for a toy in the box. And if it's out of the package, make the seller show you the copyright on the bottom of the toy. Don't get fooled for a knockoff. Transformer Diaclones can cost $60. And why do you want to pay that much for a cheap knockoff? Okay guys, stay tuned to future origins of the Transformers. We gotta still cover Generation 1 and all the way up to the new Takara toys. Robots in Disguise, the car robots, Beast Wars Neo. So head over to the Pop Culture Network forums and leave us comments. And remember guys, they're your toys. Play with them the way you want.